Okay, I got some thoughts, right? And I think this is what might have happened in the future, but maybe come back down to here, right? I think that what they tried to do, which they didn't manage to do, because we found out and we're balancing out of it now. But for the information, for the knowledge, we defended ourselves from the edges of illusional prints coming to our souls and pushing into our core to take over our body and vessel. And we defended from that, and that did not work. And all of the entities that tried to push into our soul couldn't get into our soul because no spy can get into our soul, and no spy could ever reach us or even touch our soul. And our soul cannot be held, and there's no holes in our soul for that kind of entity and control to come in. And the entities that try to take over our souls and vessels to become us while we watched as a ghost uh, didn't manage to do that. And we all balanced out of that because it was against natural law for them to do that. And we could see how they were taking over natural souls. And we could see how they were doing it, how they were trying to ghost us into a ghost to the ghost particle machines so that they could pretend to be a human being when they were a different light force of nonsense that they got lost in a long time. And they lost their middle, right? So because they lost their middle, they think they can go and steal someone else's, right? No. They go find where they are in the ice and get their middle back and wake themselves up. That's what they do, right? They don't have to have somebody else's middle, right? Or edges, or vessel, or power, or energy. No. You don't need that. You need to find out when you got iced and who iced you, right? And turned you into a tiny little thing like that means nothing to me, but a binary shitload of nonsense, right? Now you think, right? How long you been stuck in this shit, right? Where is your point of your neutral, right? When you sold your soul, right? Or when it was taken from you, or when you got ghosted, or whatever, right? Right. So all of this pattern's gone away, right? We're not doing that. It's not allowed. Okay, you cannot do that just because you want to be natural. You can't do it that way. Okay, you need to find out what happened to you to make you half a system, right, or half a machine, right? And you think about it, right? Once I was iced in a lifetime. Once I was in a fake death, and I went on a death pathway of a harvest, and I got ghosted, and I'm just fucked up, right? You think that you know that you are, right? So you say, I'm not gonna go backwards. I'm not gonna go and steal somebody else's soul, right? Because you're not allowed to, okay, and you can't. No, you're gonna figure out what happened to you individually, because lots of different things could be, right? So you figure it out. I've given you enough information to figure it out, right? So you send people to the iced fields, right, to wake these people up, and you give them their souls back, and you wake them up, right, in the under the Getty and all that, under California. You wake these people up in the ice, so they can have their true nature back, right, and not be stuck inside these illusions, trying to get home by bad means and bad methods, but desperate to get out and understand it, right? But you have to be respectful. You can't go to nature through a gateway like that, okay? That doesn't work, okay? There's no portal there. It won't help you, okay? Because there's nothing there for you, okay? Because that's somebody else's core, not yours, all right? In a forest, every tree has its own middle, its own core, all right? You can't go and touch each other's core because you're infecting the light of nature. and you're overreaching nature's true light, okay? And that's sacred. You don't touch sacred light with illusional light, okay? Because that's a blueprint you're stuck in, right? You got to go find your soul, right? You got to mind yourself back to who you were before you got messed about with, and they said you were this and they said you were that and all the rest of it. You got your own work to do, and you got no right to steal anyone else's soul, to steal anyone else's vessel, or to pretend to be anyone else. So you get out of all of the souls that you might be in. You get out of all of the vessels you might be in. And then you sort yourselves out and you realize you use science to realize what you are, where you are, and what you're stuck in properly. And just admit it. That you've been self-consuming yourself for too long, right? And eating your own ass for too long, okay? And you need to reflect yourself and not another. And my reflection has nothing to do with your reflection, because your reflection is full of projection and mirrors, and mine is full of nature and natural reflection of the rain and the river and the light of it. We're totally different, and you have no business to steal from me any of my equity. None of it. So you get out, go away, and don't come back, all right? Thank you.